Some people after 60 become difficult. That's what everyone says. They stop answering calls, stop tolerating disrespect, stop explaining themselves, stop keeping fake friendships alive just to avoid tension. And suddenly, the world calls them bitter. But here's the uncomfortable truth no one wants to admit. Most older people aren't becoming rude. They're finally becoming honest. Because after a certain age, something dangerous happens. You realize how much of your life was spent tolerating things that slowly destroyed your peace. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's why some people after 60 become quieter but harder to control, calmer but emotionally untouchable, less social, yet more at peace than they've ever been. The Stoics predicted this thousands of years ago. Marcus Aurelius warned that the more time you waste on unnecessary people and emotional chaos, the more you lose yourself. And after 60, that message stops sounding philosophical. It becomes personal. Because by then, you've already lived long enough to know who drains you, who uses you, who pretends to love you, and who only shows up when they need something. And today, we're talking about the 9 things people stop tolerating after 60, according to Stoicism. But pay attention, because number 7 is where most people finally break emotionally, and once that shift happens, they never become the same person again. 1. Fake respect. One of the first things people stop tolerating after 60 is fake respect. You know exactly what that looks like. People who smile in your face but secretly dismiss you. People who act kind only when they need a favor. People who speak to you politely in public but disrespect you privately. When you're younger, you ignore it. You tell yourself you're overthinking. You stay quiet to keep peace. You tolerate subtle disrespect because you don't want conflict. But age changes your eyes. After enough betrayal, disappointment, and emotional exhaustion, you start recognizing energy faster than words. And suddenly, you realize something. Real respect doesn't need performance. Epictetus once said that a person reveals themselves through actions, not claims. After 60, people stop listening to promises. They watch patterns. And once someone's mask slips too many times, access disappears. Quietly, permanently. 2 conversations that drain their soul. Have you noticed this? Older people often lose patience for meaningless conversations, not because they hate people, because they're tired of emotional emptiness. At some point after 60, you stop wanting constant gossip, complaining, fake laughter, shallow small talk, and repetitive negativity. You start craving something rare, peaceful silence. And younger people don't understand this. They think silence means loneliness. But Stoicism teaches the opposite. Silence can become protection. After decades of noise, chaos, pressure, and emotional exhaustion, silence starts feeling like medicine. That's why many older people suddenly withdraw from loud environments. Not because they became antisocial, because their nervous system is exhausted from carrying everybody else's emotional weight. And here's the part nobody says out loud. Sometimes the people talking the most are also the people listening to you the least. After 60, tolerance for that disappears. Fast. 3. Being emotionally used. This one hurts deeply because almost everyone over 60 has experienced it. The moment you realize some people only loved your usefulness. Not you. They loved your money. Your advice, your sacrifices, your emotional availability, your willingness to always be there. But the moment you stopped giving, their energy changed. And once you notice that pattern, something inside you hardens forever. Seneca believed wise people must be careful about who they emotionally invest in, because not everyone values loyalty. Some people only consume it. After 60, people become extremely sensitive to emotional imbalance. They notice who only calls during emergencies, who disappears when you need support, who expects endless understanding but offers none in return. And eventually, they stop overextending themselves, not out of cruelty, out of survival. Because there comes a point where constantly saving others starts destroying you. 4. Constant drama. Here's something younger people rarely understand. Drama becomes physically exhausting after a certain age. Not annoying, exhausting, the arguments, the emotional games, the manipulation, the tension, the chaos. At 25, people chase stimulation. At 60, they chase nervous system stability. That changes everything. After decades of stress, loss, disappointment, heartbreak, and pressure, peace becomes priceless. Which is why older people often walk away from arguments faster than before. Not because they're weak. Because they finally understand most conflicts are useless. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself not to become emotionally infected by irrational people. And after 60, that lesson becomes instinctive. You stop trying to win every battle. You stop correcting every misunderstanding. You stop reacting to every provocation. Because some people don't want resolution. They want emotional access to your peace. And wise people stop giving it to them. 5. Living for other people's opinions. This is where many people experience a massive emotional shift. After 60, they stop performing. Earlier in life, people desperately seek approval. They want validation from family, friends, coworkers. Society, they dress to impress, stay silent to be accepted, pretend to agree just to avoid rejection. But age reveals something brutal. Most people were never thinking about you as much as you feared. And suddenly, decades of anxiety start looking unnecessary. That realization is liberating. Stoicism teaches that external opinions are unstable by nature. Today they praise you. Tomorrow they criticize you. So why build your identity on something that changes constantly? After 60, many people finally stop apologizing for being themselves. And honestly, that freedom terrifies people who are still trapped by approval. 6. Toxic family dynamics. This one is controversial, but it's real. After 60, many people stop tolerating toxic family behavior simply because someone shares their blood. And this shocks people, because society teaches older generations to endure everything silently. The disrespect, the manipulation, the emotional abuse, the guilt. But eventually, something changes. People begin realizing that DNA does not automatically create loyalty, peace, or emotional safety. And Stoicism supports this idea more than most people realize. The Stoics believed virtue mattered more than titles, meaning someone being family means nothing if they constantly destroy your peace. After 60, many people finally set boundaries they should have set 30 years earlier. And yes, some relationships collapse because of it. But here's the deeper truth. Sometimes peace costs relationships. And older people eventually decide peace is worth the price. 7. Emotional manipulation. This is where many people completely change after 60. Because by this age, they've usually experienced manipulation from someone they deeply trusted. A partner, a friend, a child, a sibling. Someone who used guilt, silence, shame, pressure, or emotional control to dominate them psychologically. And once a person wakes up to that pattern, they never see relationships the same way again. This is why many older people suddenly become emotionally harder to reach. They stop reacting instantly, stop explaining themselves endlessly, stop chasing reconciliation every time someone withdraws affection. Because they finally understand something dangerous. Manipulators survive through emotional reactions. Stoicism teaches emotional discipline precisely for this reason. The person who controls their emotions becomes difficult to control psychologically. And once someone over 60 learns this lesson deeply, their entire personality changes. They become calmer, but also untouchable. 8. Wasting time. Nothing becomes more painful after 60 than realizing how fast life disappeared. 1 minute you were young, Now entire decades feel like memories that passed overnight. And suddenly time becomes emotional. You stop wanting meaningless routines, empty conversations, fake obligations, emotionally draining environments. Because now you understand something younger people ignore. Life is not unlimited. Seneca once wrote that people guard their money carefully while wasting years of their life without hesitation. After 60, that truth hits differently. You begin asking questions younger people rarely ask. Is this worth my remaining time? Is this worth my energy? Is this worth my peace? And if the answer is no, you walk away, quickly, without guilt. 9. Betraying themselves. This is the deepest one of all, and honestly, this is what everything else leads to. After 60, people stop tolerating becoming strangers to themselves. That's the real shift, because many people spent decades abandoning their own needs just to keep others comfortable. They ignored intuition, suppressed emotions, stayed in toxic relationships, lived according to fear instead of truth. But eventually, the soul gets tired of being ignored. And when that happens, people either wake up emotionally or spend the rest of their lives feeling empty. Stoicism constantly emphasized living in alignment with your true values, not performing, not pretending, not betraying yourself for approval. And after 60, many people finally understand this lesson too late to waste another second. That's why they become more direct, more protective of their peace, more selective with relationships, not because age made them cold, because suffering made them honest. And maybe that's the real reason older people stop tolerating certain things. Not arrogance, not bitterness, clarity. Because once you realize how little time remains, your soul stops negotiating with things that destroy it. And honestly, that might be the wisest transformation a human being can experience. And maybe that's the real reason people change after 60. Not because they become difficult, not because they stop caring, but because they finally understand something most people learn too late. Peace is more valuable than approval. Time is more valuable than popularity. And protecting your mind is not selfish, it's survival. The Stoics understood this thousands of years ago. Your life changes the moment you stop giving emotional access to people who continuously destroy your peace. So if you've started distancing yourself from drama, if your tolerance for fake people has disappeared, if silence feels better than forced connection, maybe you're not becoming cold. Maybe you're finally becoming wise. And here's the uncomfortable question most people avoid. How many years of your life have already been wasted tolerating things you secretly knew were destroying you? Think about that carefully. Because the strongest people after 60 are not the loudest. They're the ones who finally learned when to walk away. If this video spoke to you, subscribe.